So, how do you start a podcast?
Well, first you have to move to LA.
Oh, dang it. We forgot that part.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it anyway.
Messed up at step one.
All right. Well, here we go. Hello and welcome to Steam Powered Movies, a podcast about steampunk films hosted by me, engineer and producer Mike Fraedrich.
And me, Dana Fraedrich, steampunk and fantasy author extraordinaire.
Welcome. This is our very first episode, and today we went deep into the Disney vault, deep beneath the ocean waves. We watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the 1954 edition of the film, starring Kirk Douglas and James Mason, directed by Richard Fleischer. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this movie that we just watched, and we're going to kind of give our thoughts on it, some of our background and what we thought about it. Most importantly, the theme of the podcast, we're going to talk about the steampunk elements, how it's integrated, how it rates on a scale of very steampunk to not very steampunk. Some of our favorite things we'll talk about. We'll talk about some of our least favorite things. And then at the very end, we will give our very own special ratings to the film. So here we go. This is the first one. We talked about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'll go first as far as my background on this. I saw this movie when I was very young and many times growing up. And I thought this would be a good first movie to talk about because it's my introduction to the world of steampunk. I probably didn't know that that's what it was called then. I just knew it was this like cool, past futuristic kind of aesthetic with this submarine and this crazy Captain Nemo and this adventure they went on. And so I went to this not having seen it for a long time, curious how it would stand up. And yeah, we just went into it. So that's kind of my background. Dana, what did you know about this film coming in? What were you expecting?
Well, first of all, for anyone who is unfamiliar with exactly what the heck steampunk is, being a steampunk author, I get this question a lot of like, oh, what is that? It seems kind of as if people fall within two camps. Either they totally know what it is and they're a huge fan, or they have never heard of this. So basically, I usually describe steampunk as low-powered technology with futuristic applications. So for instance, like you're not going to see spaceships in the sky, but you will see airships like Zeppelins. And they might have, I don't know, weapons that use steam power, but you know, we've kind of taken some artistic license with what that steam power has the ability to do. And so that's kind of steampunk in a nutshell. You'll see that a lot in the works of Jules Verne, in the works of H.G. Wells, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
this was based on a Jules Verne novel.
Exactly.
In case anyone didn't know.
Which I haven't read. So, yeah. I know. I'm a terrible steampunker. It's very bad of me. It's a black mark on my record.
We're outing you here in the first podcast.
It's okay. It's all right.
You'll get to it. It's on the TBR. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. My ever-growing TBR. So as far as my initial expectations, I had the vaguest understanding of kind of what went into this film. I knew about the Nautilus and I knew about Captain Nemo. And I knew it was like a very like just kind of core steampunk story. But beyond that, I didn't really know what happened in it. Like I thought, oh, are we just exploring the ocean a la Jacques Cousteau, or like going on a treasure hunt, that sort of thing. The expeditions are a very big thing in steampunk, and you hear that word a lot in the movie. But apparently that's actually not the case, and we're going to get into that. But as far as like what to expect from the film, because I have never seen it.
Before today,
yeah. So I expected it to be quite long with a number of slow parts, like a lot of these older 1950s era films have, even like my beloved Hello Dolly, for instance, which is, I realize, is later than 1950, but like it follows that same kind of format. There are some slow parts in this film.
Yeah, and that style even went into like the 70s too. It reminded me of parts of the first Star Trek movie, if you remember that, where I remember. Yeah, it's just the Star Trek the movie, and there's like 5-minute sequences of just the Enterprise floating through space.
Yeah.
So yeah, similar kind of thing here where you just see the ship moving, or like an entire scene where they're just the captain giving orders on navigating, and it's not really telling the story, but it's showing you the travel happening. You're getting set in the world.
Mm-hmm. I'll say TOS is not my Star Trek series. TNG, The Next Generation, is my Star Trek series. So we didn't have as much of that. So I think I'm maybe not as used to that. But yeah, there were some slow parts in this. I actually nodded off a few times.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
I caught her.
Mike looked over and he's like, "Are you sleeping?" I'm like, "Just a little. It's fine."
Yeah, it was one of those slow parts. It's okay. You didn't miss anything.
I really didn't. I kept up with it fine. I thought maybe there'd be an intermission, which there was not. But like Hello Dolly, and again, a lot of these older films sometimes have intermissions because they kind of want to create for you like that feeling of you are watching like this old style film.
It did open kind of like a theater.
Right. Yeah.
There
you
was
had
a
like
curtain.
the book.
No, there was a curtain.
Yeah.
With the opening credits, there was an actual curtain.
Yeah.
And the curtain goes up and you see a book. It's sort of like a fairy tale beginning, but very theatrical in the opening and stuff.
Yeah. Which I dig. I love that. But yeah, no intermission in this. I also expected women to not be represented very well in this, which proved to be true, and also possibly some racist representations of people of color, which unfortunately also happened to be true. So fair warning, if you do go watch this film and you're not sure what to expect, I think you said that there were like only 2 women.
Exactly 2
in this.
Yes.
Like I only saw 2 women, but you said that they were added after the fact or something?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. I looked it up on the IMDb trivia. There are exactly 2 women in the film, and
they have about maybe 3 minutes of screen time.
If that, like a minute probably, and they only appear to be on the arms of Kirk Douglas, the star, to make him look all macho. And I think at his request, that scene was added so he could look like more of a ladies' man and be macho and get in a fight. That was like the opening sequence where he's got these 2 ladies and they're in town and like a fist fight breaks out, and like that was all his request so he could keep up his macho movie star image.
This very much leans into that like 1950s. It's almost I don't know if this counts as an anti-hero for that period, because he is not likable. Like we hate this guy, and I'm using the Mean Girls we in this, but like, he is not allowed to sit with us.
Well,
like,
I think he's very much of the like the lovable rogue archetype, but what passed as lovable was more rough around the edges back then.
Oh, that is generous. Like, just punch your way through life, even your friends. Like, he makes friends by like punching a guy.
Yeah.
It's very much like punch your way through life, and obviously women are into you just by virtue of being male, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, we're getting into spoilers. Not that we should have to say this for a 70-year-old movie, but just in general on this podcast, we're going to talk about spoilers in movies. So if you get past the first few minutes and you haven't seen it, go watch it and then hang out with us and as we talk about it. But yeah, very much of the era with the representation and things like that. So fair warning to everyone. It's of the time.
I don't like that phrasing, but we'll stick with it for now.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you defined what is steampunk, that steam technology, but futuristic, doing what elements in this movie makes it a steampunk movie? Why is this on our list? Why are we watching this one today? Again, first one, because it was kind of my introduction to it. It's probably one of the earlier steampunk films ever. Like, what about it makes it steampunk?
Well, a lot of it is very much, I mean, whenever you have a steampunk type story, you need to have the technology in some way, shape, or form, whether it's an airship of some kind, whether it's a steam-powered locomotive, anything like that. So with the Nautilus, which is extremely cool, like the Nautilus ticks like every steampunk checkbox. Like, you have like copper pipes and like steam power and levers to pull and like kind of
dials and switches,
unexplained
and,
like Tesla type electricity technology, all that kind of stuff. So this is like extremely cool. The aesthetic of the Nautilus in this film is beautiful. I love it. Like they have really clever design. If you've ever been on a ship and kind of seen the way that the rooms are set up, you are extremely limited on space. So everything has to be very tight and clever and multi-use. And you see that in a lot of steampunk films because a lot of that aesthetic is like reusing things and making good use of what you have. So they're making really good use of the space. Like if you're in the our Ned Land is our main character's name, which
the Kirk Douglas character. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I find this name very funny because it feels like they were like, maybe the audience won't get that he's a foil for Captain Nemo. So we're going to call him Ned Land because Captain Nemo is of the sea and he's of the land.
It's a battle. They're on opposite sides.
They don't agree.
Yeah. They don't see things the same way.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you see a lot of that. You see the very clever layout of the room and everything. And I mean, this is fairly typical for ships. We went on a tour of the USS Midway several years back. Same kind of thing in the rooms and stuff that you got to go tour. Everything's very small, very compact, very, very tidy as far as design. If you've ever seen like tiny homes and those sort of things, same kind of thing, which I love.
Yeah. So, but like as far as this movie, one of the opening shots is of a steamship. So even like the era that it's set in is right in that range for steam technology.
And
right?
this is like high, what I consider kind of like the peak of the Victorian era rather. The movie is set, I believe, in 1896, which is right at the end of Queen Victoria's reign. And by then, the Victorian era has we've developed loads and loads of stuff. We've kind of taken the steam technology and man, have we milked it for all it's worth. So yeah, and you're seeing the smokestacks on top of the ships. You're seeing all the smoke coming out from, burning coal and things like that. So yeah, it just ticks every box. And then they kind of put a little extra sauce on top with when you see the Nautilus for the first time, it has these glowing eyes, kind of
so good,
like phosphorescence, like the bioluminescent creatures that you see in the ocean stuff. It's a very cool effect.
Yeah, I like how they kind of designed it after a deep sea creature. The sub itself, the green eyes, the glowing eyes, even the shape of it with all the sharp points. It looks gnarly. It's got lots of rough edges, like one of those crazy looking deep sea fishes that you see these photos on. You're like, wait, is that real or alien? No,
right.
But that's what this thing looks like. And so let's talk about that scene. The showpiece of the movie might be when our main characters discover the Nautilus. They see it sitting. They just kind of find it floating around there after their ship is attacked. They or drift for a while, and then they kind of just land on it, and it's unoccupied. They walk in, and you get an extended sequence of them just exploring and seeing all, like you said, all the dials and levers and stuff, and it's cool. And then later on, you get a scene where Nemo is showing them around the ship. It shows them the engine room, and so we think it's steam power. I know during certain scenes where Nemo's giving orders, you hear in the sound design, there's steam sounds. So I think it's some sort of heat source making steam, powering everything. But the heat source is, I think, the sun. Maybe
they're real squiffy on what it is because he kind of alludes to it being this discovery that he created, and his wife and his daughter died was tortured to death because he wouldn't give up the secret because it's too dangerous for man to have because humans are frankly terrible. But yeah, and so the professor he kind of dons this crazy heavy shield kind of thing. Captain Nemo has to avert his gaze, and you walk up and it's just this bright light coming out of what is essentially the engine, and it looks like a star. It looks like it's powered by a small star. It's
did they capture a star and put it in the engine? Is that what it creates the steam for this steam powered submarine? It's
nebula powered. But no, I do think just the basic concept of whatever this thing is, it creates heat, it boils the water creates steam. Ta-da! Steam powered Nautilus ship.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that it seems almost to allude to like nuclear power, even though this was written by Jules Verne in like the 1800s, that they wouldn't have known like what nuclear power was. But it's kind of crazy that he came up with this idea that it seems like what became nuclear power, because that's what subs are powered by now.
Well, I think there was a lot of fascination with space at the time as well. We had not gone to space yet, obviously, but I'm a terrible person. I think it was H.G. Wells. No, I think it was Jules Verne who wrote. Yeah, actually,
Earth
no, sorry,
to the Moon, right?
Sorry. Both H.G. Wells and Jules Verne wrote stories about traveling into space. One was From the Earth to the Moon.
Yeah, that was Jules Verne.
And then I'm trying to remember the other one, because the Watch City Steampunk event that I did last year had basically 2 teams, and one was for each story, and I can't remember the other one. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but
Tweet
yeah,
at
so
us, get in the comments.
Yeah, get in the comments. Let us know what they are. So yeah, but there was a lot of fascination with space and getting out there and seeing what was available. And I don't know what the actual text of the book says. Like I said, I haven't read it because I'm terrible. But I also wonder how much of this is kind of like Disney's interpretation of it at the time, because this is 10 years after World War II, when we dropped the atom bomb and we had learned how to, manipulate those basic atomic particles to cause mass destruction. And you kind of get a lot of those vibes in the dialogue when Captain Nemo is kind of going on about like the horrible potential of humans and how they can't handle the level of technology he's created and everything. And there's a lot of those themes in there, which I think is very applicable.
Yeah, I think it goes very much. It's interesting that it's a Disney movie because it's kind of a dark ending.
Mm-hmm.
Where like Captain Nemo goes down with the ship and destroys all this technology because he doesn't think the world is ready for it. But I think it does kind of jive with Disney himself, some of his ideas. He had this idea of like the world of tomorrow, where it was all this crazy cool technology, but people living in harmony, and like world peace and all this stuff were like very much some of his ideals. So I wonder how much of doing this movie and portraying it that way was kind of a commentary on the atom bomb, maybe specifically that we're not ready to deal with this technology even after it's already been out. And he's maybe lamenting these things that happened, but I mean that's a bit of speculation on my part, but it seems appropriate to the time. But yeah, it was interesting how that was portrayed in the movie, and it's again very much part of that like the steampunk aesthetic. We had the technology in there. We had the look of the sub. We had the rivets everywhere. So many rivets.
Oh yeah, it was covered in rivets. But that's always been very much like sci-fi's thing of like, in one hand you have the ability and the potential to do so much, but on the other hand, like, should we and can we handle that responsibility? I mean, Jurassic Park is so good and such a great way of that. Like, oh, we can bring dinosaurs back, but should we?
Right. With great power comes great responsibility.
Spider-Man. No, the theme of Jurassic Park was we spared no expense.
Yes, of course.
So, I getting slightly tangent here though, but it kind of goes along with the theme. I did love the way that anytime the Nautilus attacked one of the warships, there was like a Michael Bay level explosion. Like, I know coal dust is very flammable, but good gravy, there's just like boom, just like huge fiery fireball. And I mean, is it accurate? I don't know. I also don't really care because it looks hella cool. Like, who doesn't love a big explosion?
So we can blame Richard Fleischer for starting the trend of explosions where they shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
In movies, someone shoots a car with a bullet and it explodes. You run a sub into a steam-powered ship and it explodes. That's just what happens.
Like ramming speed, explosion, obviously.
Yeah. It looks cool. You got to do it. You got to do it. So talking more about steampunk elements, did we get any fashion that really goes with the steampunk aesthetic? I didn't really notice much. Did you see anything?
Well, we had all of 2 ladies in the film for maybe a handful of minutes. But honestly, I I don't believe I have a chart of all the silhouettes from the Victorian era, because even in just a matter of 20 years, the silhouettes changed dramatically. We got the bustle in like the 1860s, which was a huge change from the cage crinoline. So it was a lot easier to pass through doorways. You'll see in earlier Victorian era homes, doorways are actually wider for women's dresses.
That's just so crazy to me.
I can't even tell you, like, just like the vast, it's a spectrum. Ladies' dresses of this period are on the spectrum. So like you had huge puffy sleeves. We did eventually get the slimmer silhouettes and stuff. But none of that's in this movie. I don't think so. Just looking at their outfits, it looks very more like Southern cotillion kind of dresses.
I got kind of like Wild West saloon people. Like
I wouldn't go so far as like saloon waitress or anything like that. They were very nice. They looked nice. They were those pretty bright colors. But like I said, I don't believe the style was correct, especially with the sleeves, because the sleeves are very telling as to like what era of the Victorian era that the dress comes from.
I do wonder if it's maybe a departure, because this was the land. We get very little on land. It's mainly the beginning setup where they're in what they're called Frisco, San Francisco.
No one calls it Frisco.
So they're in Frisco, and it's more of a Wild West America setting. I wonder if because it's that, then we don't get like the European Victorian fashion in this, or if they just didn't care when they were making the movie.
I don't think Disney was going for historical accuracy is impossible to recreate just because we don't have enough extant dresses. However, I'm going to use the word historical accuracy here for lack of a better term. I don't think they were going for that. I think they were going for like, oh, it does the job. Okay, it'll sort of send the message, even though they told us not 2 minutes before this that it's set in 1896.
Right. So not really the fashion, but tons of the technology. And here's a bit of steampunkish technology that is sort of meta to the movie itself. I don't know if you knew this, but so the very end of the movie, kind of the climax, they fight a giant squid. They dive super deep in the ocean. They get attacked by a giant squid. It latches on to the Nautilus, and then they surface to battle it hand to hand. And that giant squid is animatronic. So it's full of gears and things.
Oh, look at you making those connections.
Yeah. So there's a steampunk element in the movie that's like you're not even supposed to know that it is.
It would be like really laying on the steampunk aesthetic thick if it was like a clockwork squid.
Right. Well, again, this is another thing I got from the IMDb trivia. So who knows if it's accurate, but according to the trivia that I read, they originally shot that battle scene where it was a calm ocean and it was like a sunny day, but you could see like the clockworks in the squid thing because it was, I guess, kind of basic, and it was just hard to hide all of the mechanics.
Yeah.
So they reshot it having it be in a storm so that stuff would be obscured by the waves and the darkness.
Yeah.
So you couldn't tell that it was animatronic, but it is. We got a steampunk squid fighting a steampunk submarine. I mean, how steampunk can this movie get?
It's
right?
true. Yeah. This one I will say, despite some of my issues with it, it is very, very like thickly in the steampunk aesthetic and whatnot. And I mean, it's, if you just want to have something on the background, if you just want to enjoy a bit of a dark story, but it does the job. Like it's definitely a good one. I have to say I'm on Captain Nemo's team. Like, besides the wholesale murder of innocent people, I kind of agree with him. I don't agree. I don't approve of his methods. I'm very disappointed in him.
He's complicated, man. He's complicated.
Yeah.
We'll get. I have more notes on that later.
Okay.
So let's talk about some of our favorite things about this movie. We're gonna hit maybe 2 or 3 things that we really liked about this film. So, hit me with something you really liked about it.
Okay, I have 2 very specific things that I really loved about this. The first one is the aqua-culture. So there's this scene where Captain Nemo is having dinner with his quote unquote guests, Ned and the professor and the professor's assistant. And he's talking about how everything is from the ocean because the ocean provides. This is my James Mason impression, nailing it. And he like has a sauce made of barnacles, and there's a saute of sea snake or whatever. And everything is from the ocean. But there's actually an extremely cool scene later where like they visit their farms. I'm doing little air quotes.
The underwater farm.
Yeah,
super
and that's
cool.
actually very cool. I like this idea of having a whole aquaculture situation happening.
They were completely disconnected from the land. He was like, I don't need anything from the land. The ocean gives me everything.
Bro, your clothing is from the land. Like your woolen navy jacket came from a sheep.
I don't know. Maybe there's a ocean sheep that they sheared.
I think there probably is a sheepfish, but I don't think it gives you wool.
You don't know.
I think I do.
Have you been to the bottom of the ocean in the Nautilus for yourself?
I have not, funny enough.
Okay, so we don't know.
Yeah. It was very weird though, because like they legit were like dragging real sea turtles through the water by their flippers, and the sea turtles were clearly over it.
Oh yeah.
Just like, what is this nonsense? I felt very bad for them. Y'all, please leave the sea turtles alone. Please stop stepping on the coral.
Yeah, that was one of the things. The animals being uncomfortable aside, actually, kind of one of the things I really liked about this movie is, watching an older film as opposed to something more modern. You knew that everything was really happening. Like everything was really happening on camera.
They were legitimately underwater in like old timey diving suits doing the things.
I think they were probably scuba gear covered in like
it looked old timey
stuff. Yeah, they made it look old timey. Yeah, but they were really underwater. They were really doing these things. They really had real animals there. I think one of the scenes where there was a shark was unscripted.
Oh no!
Again,
that looked like stock footage to me.
It could have been. There was a lot of stock footage thrown in there, but I did like that watching it. Like everything was real. Everything was really happening. It gave that tension. It kind of keeps your interest even down to a lot of modern movies. If there's a conversation happening between two people, it'll be like a close up on their face while they're talking. And then the close up on the other character's face while they're talking. And you're like, those people probably weren't even in the same room when they shot this scene, right? Whereas this movie, if there's a scene with three people having a conversation, you have a shot of all three people in the shot at the same time having the conversation. You see one person talking, the other person reacting, and then moving around and stuff. It really like pulls you into the movie. It pulls you into the world. And so I liked that about it a lot. And some of the stuff about it didn't hold up to modern day, but I think that part of it did, in the visual storytelling, that everything was really happening on camera and you could see them doing it. And like there was this, like the scene where the actors, they're like diving underwater at like that little room where there's that portal in the bottom of the ship.
Yeah, I'm pretending there's some kind of airlock because that's not actually how that works, but okay.
Right. Who knows how accurate it is? But you're like, yeah, they actually had everybody in suits jumping through that thing into a pool of water. It really did that. That's how they shot it. I just really like that part of it.
What was also very cool about that scene is that they didn't have like radios or anything. Like it was all nonverbal communication. So you see them like tapping each other and like pointing and stuff, and like the more exaggerated movements, which of course like we've all kind of gotten used to, like as we had to wear masks and COVID and stuff, like we all started gesticulating wildly in our conversations. So, but no, like there was a lot of creativity when it came to, all right, now you're gonna have to act with just like a small portion of your face because you could only see like that little circle of their face, but then also their body and stuff.
Yeah. Another thing I liked was some of the small jokes. And again, like I think some modern movies will like really highlight jokes or be like basically a rim shot when a joke happens.
Wasn't that funny?
Right. But there's just the little things, like in one of the opening scenes when they're on the ship, Kirk Douglas has shaving cream on his face when something happens.
Actually, as much as I don't like his character, I'm calling him
you have a very bad nickname for him. Yeah.
He was very, very bro-y. I'm calling him Jacques Cousteau.
Wow. Jacques Cousteau.
Jacques Cousteau.
Wow.
But that was actually a very cute scene because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, he had his shaving cream on his face, and he's like, "Oh, it's that time for action." So he just like went, and then they're looking over the side of the ship, and he puts his hand on his head on his hand, and then he moves, and he's like, "Oh, I got shaving cream on my hand." And it's not like a close up. It's not like, again, nobody else is reacting. It's just a little thing that happens. And then there was a recurring thing that I don't know if you caught this later, where Kirk Douglas, Jacques Cousteau, and the professor's protege, they kind of team up later on to try and escape from the Nautilus. And Kirk Douglas's character rubs the guy's head, but he rubs his hair backwards. Did you notice that?
No, well, he's really short hair. I saw him do that a lot, and I thought it was just some little affectation.
I think it was a little joke because when he was being friendly, he would basically pet his head, but he would like rub his hair the wrong direction. Like if you pet a cat's hair the wrong direction.
Oh.
And then every time he did it, the assistant character would rub his hair back the correct direction.
I did not notice this.
Yeah,
no.
It happened 3 times in the movie, and I thought it was just a funny little joke that he's like, the first time it's like, oh, he just patted him on his head, but then they did it again and again. And you notice him fix his hair every time. And the third time, there's even a little musical cue when he rubs his hair back in the correct direction. There's like a little violin that goes like, meow.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that. That's very funny.
Anything else that you liked? What was your second thing?
My other thing was a secret base inside a non-active volcanic caldera is the coolest thing ever.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
I wish we had seen more of that.
I know. I was like, I want a tour, please. Thank you.
Yeah, we got to tour the Nautilus for like 20 minutes. Can we see inside this secret base? But I guess that was again with the secret technology. They're not going to actually tell you because they didn't actually know what it was, but they're just like...
And then they blow it up, of course, because it's too dangerous to fall into people's hands. But the secret base inside the caldera was extremely cool with like an underwater tunnel leading there.
Right.
Like that was extremely cool. I saw that and I was kind of like, I wish more of the movie had happened here, but I realized it's just an exterior set.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree though. Yeah, the underwater tunnel, the surfacing in this centered volcano
the lagoon.
Pool. The lagoon, yeah. Yeah, that's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I liked, again, it was a thing in the very beginning that kind of brought me into like the feel of the movie. So I like the live orchestra, like the classical orchestration, this era gave us a lot of the language of music scores that we have in modern times. The recordings sound better now, but when something stressful is happening, the strings are going like dun, 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 and when it's really happy, it's like these high floating string things. Like, that was from the very beginning. I was kind of sucked in by that, so I really like the classical score to go along with this movie.
Yeah. And they even have like we talked about this a little bit earlier. They did a thing in there that is not done in films anymore. And this is one of the reasons why I call him Jacques Cousteau. Like he comes out with a guitar, like that guy who shows up to a party with a guitar, unasked for, by the way, and just like starts playing and singing for everyone. And that's not a thing done at all anymore in movies where we just have like a musical number randomly.
Right. I think as another one of those things that was kind of transitioning people from classical like song and dance musicals were like the dominant form of storytelling.
They were still for several decades.
Yeah, into this more modern, like this is a movie. This is not a musical.
Yeah.
just following these characters as if it's real life. But yeah, they threw in some weird. There was a random couple sequences where it was narrated randomly.
Yeah, like, well, they were kind of doing that thing where you're kind of like glossing over stuff that's happening over time. Like, oh, for 3 days we traveled through a storm, but we were underwater, so it was beautiful and we were fine. It was an amazing experience, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and like that one section that basically turned into like a nature documentary. That was the first time the narration came in.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're underwater, and he was like, and this is where we found all these creatures, and they were doing the farming and stuff
that
like
was
that.
Yeah, like I love a system.
Yeah.
So I love just this idea of like this sort of way that they've cultivated this whole area and all the sea's bounties for themselves.
With French David Attenborough narrating.
I don't know who the French David Attenborough would be. I mean, Jacques Cousteau, probably.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Jacques Cousteau. There we go. We figured it out.
Yep.
So that was our favorite things.
Mhm.
Let's talk about some least favorite things. I'm pretty sure you have a list of those, but let's try and keep it to a minimum. Maybe 2 least favorite things.
I mean, I've pretty much talked about my dislike of Ned Land. I cannot stand this character.
Mm-hmm.
There's like I'm not anti like a rogue character or anti like a confident cocky male character
like a Han Solo.
I was gonna say Flynn Rider. I don't really have an emotional connection with Han Solo. I'm a Trekkie girl, not really a Star Wars kind of person.
Still a good example.
Okay, sure. But like I said, I don't have an emotional connection to him. But like a Flynn Rider kind of character. Even like Will Riker, he's not a rogue, but he kind of has rogue energy about him.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm not anti those characters. I just don't like him. Like I hate the way he talks about women, and like, you know, in his little song that he plays, like the closing verse is about what do they call her? Like Harpoon Hannah, and she's so ugly. And it's just I can't stand this sort of person. Don't want to be friends with him. So he's honestly like, I was like, is he gonna die? Because I would be totally fine if he died.
Goodness.
Like,
it's a Disney movie, Dana.
I know, but you know, it got kind of dark for a Disney movie.
It did actually.
But I will say that actually kind of like leads me to the other thing I didn't really like, and like old movies and old books and stuff, they kind of do this thing where things happen in a bit of a vacuum, which, you know, my personal writing mantra is nothing happens in a vacuum.
I do know that.
And like
now the rest of you do.
Yeah. The crew of the Nautilus was sort of just ineffectual. Like at the end, Captain Nemo's like, and now we're all going to die here at the bottom of the sea. And like no one says anything.
Right? No, I totally saw the same thing. It was like, are you all automatons? What is happening?
Everyone's just like, yep, cool. That's what we're going to do. We're all just going to like lock ourselves in a room and starve to death and drown. Like, and like no one does anything like that. So like, that was the only other thing that I didn't really like of like, I understand this is a thing that happened a lot. I don't really understand why, because like this is never how humans have been. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, like everyone's just super cool with this like group suicide.
Yeah, that was on my list too, actually. Like I get destroying the base because it was compromised.
Sure.
Other people had found out about it. You know, the message in a bottle thing went out, and all these, you know, forces were coming and collapsing. But like, why couldn't you just keep living on your boat in the ocean as long as you can?
Right.
Why you gotta go have this like cultish like suicide pact happening right now just because you got shot and you don't have a doctor on board for some reason?
Yeah, there is no doctor. Like the bosun is kind of the closest thing, but like he doesn't even say anything. Like Nemo gets shot in the back, like, and you see a huge blood stain on his back. It's not like he's like, you know, doing the noble, I'm going to hide it from my crew kind of thing. No, it's just out. And his bosun, who's there, I was like, okay, is no one seeing this? But he's standing right behind him and he makes no reaction. And only when like Nemo starts to collapse is he like, what? What is wrong with you? My goodness. It's like, no. Like you had to have seen this.
Yeah.
It's a huge blood stain.
Yeah. That part of it, like the ending part, I like that he was a complicated character, that he had.
Oh, I like Nemo so much.
Yeah, he had this, you know, had the dark backstory. He had the emotional pipe organ playing scene.
Oh, man. I love that. I love the pipe organ.
Very Phantom of the Opera vibes for me.
Ba, 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 ba.
Yeah, he might as well have been playing that.
Yeah.
And just, it was right when it was right after or was it right before?
It was like while they were attacking the ship carrying all the munitions.
Right.
It's a very emotional scene.
He was like, I am murdering all these people, but it hurts me.
Yeah, and James Mason's acting style is so stoic.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
no, I will say that's some of the best fake instrument playing acting.
Is it?
It was actually good.
I don't know how to play an instrument, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I play several instruments, and I see movies all the time where people are pretending to play an instrument, and it looks nothing like the sound that is coming through the soundtrack. But he actually moved his body following the beats of the music fairly well. Like, there's probably a few parts where it wasn't 100%, but he got the main points, and I actually wrote that down. I was like, pretty good fake instrument playing.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I liked his portrayal. The ending part where he's like, I'm going down with the ship and taking all these people with me.
Yep.
Like, if he even gave them the option to, like, leave or something.
Sure.
And he's like, I'm going to go down. I got to destroy the ship. I'm going to go down with it myself. Like, that I could get on board with. It very much fit his character. But just taking everyone with him and all of the, explaining away all of the murder,
Yeah, I just real glossed over that.
Yeah, glossing over lots of murder.
So much murder.
So, yeah, that's not my favorite. But, and the other thing, just the pacing. And that's a thing that I have with older movies in general, too.
Mm-hmm.
Just the pacing is slow. And, taken individually, the scenes, you get drawn in. And I like that it's not just quick cutting back and forth. They take their time, but put all together, it just makes for a very long experience. And there's whole scenes they probably could have cut out because it didn't really do much. But, they were making a movie and they're like, we did this thing and we thought it was fun. We left it in.
But also, like, I think that was just very much the format. And this is not trying to be a commentary on, like, the short attention spans of modern day viewers. But we also have kind of been trained that, like, everything should be short and snappy and, like, moving on, like, to the next thing super fast. Like, YouTube has engineered its entire structure for shorter videos to be successful because we don't want to sit through, like, even a half-hour video sometimes. So I just think that was just the format. And, like, when you went to the theater, it was a 3-hour experience, if not longer.
Right. No, but yeah, it's I did like that it was an adventure, and that it took its time in certain places I actually enjoyed, but overall could have been shorter. Some of the pacing issues, but whatever. Not too bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've kind of done the thing. This is we're getting to the end here. We're gonna do our own ratings on this movie.
Yeah.
And we're gonna rate it on 2 different scales, actually.
This is good. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, so we're going to first rate it on how steampunk is this movie. So if you're listening to this podcast series, you're like, I'm into steampunk. I want to watch steampunk movies. I want to know which ones are very steampunk and which ones are just like, well, just a little teeny tiny bit in there. So out of 5 steam engines.
Oh, 5 out of 5 steam engines for how steampunky this is.
Right,
it
agreed.
Ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, we missed some of the fashion, I guess, but
I can't speak to, like, the Navy uniforms, how accurate those might be. But yeah, like,
but I think this makes up for it. I think
the entire aesthetic of the Nautilus, like, even that closing scene where, like, there's that, like, window that kind of corkscrews open because Nemo pulls a lever, like, just chef's kiss.
Oh yeah,
like. I'm going to go ahead and give it 5 out of 5 steam engines for steampunkiness. 100%.
I agree. 5 out of 5. Very steampunk. If you're into it, if you want to know, what are some of the foundational steampunk movies and things, this is one of them. So check it out for that if you're into it. And then now we're going to rate it on our enjoyment. Not necessarily, we're not movie critics.
Yeah.
We're not going to be like, well, the dialogue and the script writing, I mean, I might amateur film critic it sometimes, but just how much did you enjoy it on a scale of 1 to 5? So Dana, on a scale of 1 to 5 gears.
Oh, okay. The fact that I did doze off at parts of this, I think is very telling. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think as far as an enjoyment goes, I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. And I know that's harsh, but, like, honestly, the steampunkiness was, like, the top thing for me, but the everything else fell a bit flat.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. For me, I'm gonna rate my movies on a scale of 1 to 5 top hats. I'm gonna give this one 3 top hats. So
very dapper, sir.
Thank you. Again, I had the the connection, the nostalgia factor, like the first hour of the movie, I was just like, yeah, I'm in. This is my thing, you know. But it did drag on in bits, and some of the stuff doesn't quite hold up. So I think three is fair. It's a middle of the road. I think it's fairly enjoyable, especially for a movie of its era. I'll give it 3 out of 5 top hats.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
All right, and there we go. Did you have anything else you want to talk about? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so, but I do want to say, if you, friends, have any recommendations for steampunk films that you think we should watch, then please do tweet us at Mike. What's our podcast or the tweeter thingy?
It's Steam Powered Pod on Twitter. So at Steam Powered Pod, tweet at us. Give us some recommendations. If there's any steampunk movies that you know about or you're a big fan of, let us know. We'll add it to our list. We're building a database, and we need to know what are all the steampunk movies that we have to choose from that we can watch for future episodes.
And do be sure to let us know, if it's not something that's immediately apparent, what some of the steampunk elements that are in that film that we can be aware of. And also, Mike, would you like to tell them a couple of the other movie podcast episodes that we have coming up?
Oh, sure. We don't have an exact order yet. We're still working on it, but some of the ones we know we're going to do, we've got, speaking of Old West settings, we got Wild Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
We got Back to the Future 3.
Yep.
That's a classic.
Next up, we're going to be doing Great Mouse Detective, because that was my first steampunk film.
Right. Yeah. My first this time, your first next time. We got Atlantis. We got Stardust. There's so many good ones. There's ones that are just good movies that have steampunk stuff to it. So we're really excited to get into that. We'll get some more obscure stuff too. So yeah, thanks for anyone who's tuning in, listening. This has been Steam Powered Movies. We really appreciate it. You can go to steampoweredmovies.com for more information. You can tweet at us at steampoweredpod on Twitter. And we hope you join us for the next episode.
And if you liked this podcast and you think you might have a little bit to say about it, if you would please leave us reviews on either iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast app is, that would be super helpful. Reviews are incredibly helpful for indie creators. So thank you so much in advance, and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.